every entrepreneur, every business leader, every CEO really has to become a first-class storyteller.
This is so exciting that we're talking about stories, because a great mentor of mine is really delving into storytelling.
Right.
And I know that through the research he's been doing, stories have a fundamental power for us human beings. I mean, go back over many thousands of years when we were hunter and gatherer style, it was stories around campfires and things, which is how wisdom and religion and
of course
everything was communicated and taught.
Yes, well, all the great teachers have told stories or parables in various forms.
Yeah.
And I mean, remember as kids, what do we love? The once upon a time story.
Of course, once upon a time, and then no.
Which lead us into a magic kingdom. So there really are 4 different types of stories. We can say one of them is the once upon a time story, and that is the story of the past. And really, why I say, tell 4 types of stories often is because the first sort of story that people want to know about is the story of the past, because the story of the past has explaining power. Why was this business started? Why are we as we are? And we need to have that. We need to have that story.
So business would use that past story to explain to their customers why the business exists in the first place.
And to their team.
Why the vision and the why and their story.
And that has explaining power. So for example, when people come to me to mentor, they often want to know, why do I have this behaviour? Why do I do this? Why do I have this roadblock? And I explain that we could spend the next 7 years trying to find the answer to that, or we could simply make up a story. And I jokingly say, well, what if we said, you do that because of the way your mother dressed you? Would you find that acceptable? And most people say, oh yes. So we say, well, you've got this aberrant behaviour because of the way your mother dressed you. So now we can move from that explaining story, which their reason is about the past. We can go there now into how to change what they want to do differently. So we get to change a lot quicker that way.
Yeah, and so the first story is the past.
Yes.
Next type.
Yes, and the past story has explaining power.
Yeah.
The second story is the story of the present.
Yeah.
And that always has resourcing power. So in my house I've got a piano and I've got beds and I've got kitchen. These are resources I can call upon. In a business, I've got machines and computers and people. So telling that story says these are the resources we can build.
Okay.
And this story is really, really important, because research by Gallup has established, which is one of the biggest world's research organisation, they've researched over 1 million people, and they've discovered that the first question that people really need to know to do their job well is, what is expected of me?
Yes.
The second one that they need to know really about, do I have the resources, the material, the equipment, the know-how to do the job to my very best? And the third question, interestingly, is what am I being told about my performance? What feedback am I getting to say that I'm doing a really good job? And all of those can be encapsulated pretty well in stories. Now, the entrepreneur or the CEO sometimes has to push things to create the story, but for example, last night I was giving feedback to a person who'd been working with me all day, and I told some specific incidences, when you did this.
Of the story,
Yes, of things I'd observed he did that he'd done well, and then I was able to point out the one thing that really he would need to change. But it was all in storytelling form.
Oh, beautiful. So we've got the stories from the past, which is explaining power. The stories from the present, which is resources.
Resourcing
the
power.
Third, future.
Yes, of course. The third story is the story about the future. And this is the visioning, the dreaming, where we're intending to head. And can you guess what power that has? Motivating power.
Yeah, it's motivating. It's got the inspiration. It's the vision of where we want to go. So it's like the motivating drive to work hard now in the present to get there.
Exactly. So that's really important. And the more we tell the future story of what we aspire to, where we're heading, what we want to do with this customer and why, and what resources we've got to do that, we get to our fourth story, which
What's
is...
the fourth? Because we've covered past, present and future.
Yeah, this one's not so intuitively obvious. So here we are, we've explained why we're here, we've got to the present, here we have all these restorers, and here we have a future. Now, as soon as I do that, what's the story in between? The gap story.
The gap story.
Right, you know.
So that's the story of getting from here to there.
Yes, and that story has actioning power.
Uh-huh.
Because we aspire to this, we want to do this, we have these resources, so this is what we have to do. These are the actions and decisions we take to get us from here to here. And so that has actioning power.
Beautiful, fantastic.
And just to conclude, I'd like to go back to the thing where we started about Once Upon a Time. Stories have power for many, many reasons. You know, they interpret, they help us to understand.
Engage us emotionally.
They engage us emotionally. They are easy to remember. I mean, for example, there's a beautiful example of a television commercial of a little boy who's always asking why.
Yeah.
And he asks his dad, you know, why was the Great Wall of China built? And his father, who didn't have a clue, drew himself up to full power, and he said, Emperor Chow Min, he needed to keep out the rabbits, so he built the Great Wall of China as a rabbit fence. Now, a very memorable story, totally made up, but totally unforgettable. I can't remember what product was being advertised, but I'll never forget
the story. So maybe they just need to weave the product into the story a bit better next time.
It would be a little better.
Because the story sticks.
The story
That's
sticks.
what we remember.
Yes.